Hey, everybody, and welcome. My name is Rob Phelan, also known as the FI Educator Online. I am joined by Barrett today, who is the co-founder and host of the ChooseFI podcast. And we're here to answer a very important question for teens. And that is, should I go to college? And we're really looking at this from the lens of when I am thinking about my future plans and what I want to do for a career. Is college still the best route for me to go if I want to build wealth? And if I do go to college, is it worth it? Like, can I make the math work for this, where the amount I put in is going to get me a higher paying career at the other end that makes it worth it? Like, will I get a return on my investment? And now, of course, there is the question of like, what do you want to do? And some careers do require college education, but we're even going to push back on some of that a little bit today and try and think about, okay, what careers truly require a bachelor's degree or a master's degree? And then what ones could you get through alternative means? So, Brad, welcome to my classroom.
Yeah, this should be fun, man. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a massive question we have in front of us, but it should be fun.
Yeah, it really is. I remember being in high school, and I got to late in my spring semester of my senior year and still didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd applied to a couple of different colleges. I went to high school in Ireland, for context. So it was a little bit different to what you all have here in the US, but same idea that you have to think about your entire life in high school and what direction you want to go, and then start yourself on that trajectory. And for me, college was never a question. It was, I think, something my parents from a very young age were like, well, after high school, you go to college. You're going to college. Like, there was never a question of going into a trade or any of the other alternative career paths. So was it the same for you?
It was, yeah. So I definitely, I never felt pushed, but it was just the default path, as if there were no other paths. And clearly, like you just said, there are lots of other paths. There's the military, there's the trades, there's so many different options. But yeah, that was just essentially the only option. So for me, I guess, and I grew up on Long Island. I went to a very competitive public high school, and I just got caught up in almost like that rat race of, okay, you have to do great in high school. You have to be in the top 5%. You have to get great SAT scores, as if these things to a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, those seem like the most important things in the world at that time. And yeah, I just got caught up in it. And it's funny looking back with the benefit of 20 plus years of hindsight, it's hard to imagine that felt so important to me, knowing what I know now. But in that moment, that was everything.
I mean, I think we feel that way. And this is the adult hindsight that comes with years of experience. We look back on what happened in high school or middle school or elementary school, and you're like, how was I so worried about that? But, for all of you who are feeling this way, that, everything is about your future and what's happening next, at this point in your life, that probably is the biggest problem in your life. And if it is, you're also very fortunate, because I'm sure there are bigger problems out there. And there's some of you watching or listening to this who are saying, well, actually, no, that's not the biggest problem in my life right now. And hopefully you are finding your way through that. But for a lot of us at that age, yeah, thinking about our future, there was a huge amount of pressure placed on us for this. And there probably is for you as well. So has it changed? Like, have our cultural norms changed at all, would you say, since you went to college and I went a little bit after you, just a little bit? I mean, you're just a little older than I am.
Yeah.
So have they changed, would you say?
And I'm glad you clarified also, because I never want to minimize what somebody is feeling, obviously. And I have a 10th grade daughter, and I know how she's getting caught up in it. So it is perfectly normal. And I think what's great about a session like this is, again, we're just but two people, but we do have a couple of, going on 2 decades of experience in the quote unquote real world. And I think we can look back, because honestly, and one of my biggest lessons for financial independence is your life goes quickly. It goes by in a snap. And that's why decisions you make early can really matter. But I guess why I'm saying that now is, it doesn't feel all that long ago that I was 17 and I was making these decisions. So it's not like I'm some old geezer, looking back, oh, I can't even remember those days. Like, I can viscerally remember, like, man, it felt really critical. And I think, and I will ask you to reiterate your question, because I kind of lost the plot here a little bit in terms of, I really wanted to touch on this, because I think what I've seen matters the most is the skills you have. And Rob, I'm probably jumping way far ahead. We'll get into this in a little bit, but it's being conscientious. It's I know this sounds silly, but it's showing up on time. It's doing what you say you're going to do. It's handing things in a timely manner. Your work, what you work on. It is solving problems. I mean, Rob, I have so few people in my life who solve problems for me. I would pay almost any amount of money for someone who was just a go-getter, who just solved problems, who was able to learn on their own. We're in the golden age of learning right now, right? With Google and YouTube, you can learn anything, regardless of what your degree is or where you went to school or who your parents were. And none of this stuff that used to matter dozens, decades, or hundreds of years ago, like who your parents were, really mattered. Now it's, if you show up and you have skills and you show me you can learn and you can communicate, right? You're both written and speaking orally, man, you're better than 98% of people. Like I would kill for somebody like that. And I hire people. So like it's easy to get skewed in terms of, okay, what's important at different stages. But like I can tell you for sure, that is going to be important no matter how old you are, no matter where you went to college, no matter who you are. If you can do those things, again, you're ahead of 98% of people. And again, Rob, I'm getting way ahead of ourselves here, but in terms of like one of these things that people my age or our age kind of reflect on is like, and I think I even asked you this when we were talking about this session, is do you even know where anybody you work with went to college? And I mean, for me, the answer was no. I have no idea. But yet at 16, 17, 18, it mattered so much. Are you going to, for me, it was, are you going to Cornell? Are you going to Duke? Are you going to, I went to the University of Richmond. Are you going to the local state school? Like, as if those things really mattered. And like, frankly, it might help you. Maybe the elite pedigree might help you get that first job. I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't matter. If you went to Harvard or Penn or Dartmouth, that might help you get that first interview. But I mean, after those first couple of years, no one cares where you went to college. Mm-hmm. They care what you can do and what skills you have.
Okay, so there's a huge lesson in here, and that is, at the age that all of you are watching this, so we're in high school, we're still developing ourselves. First off, a little bit of shade thrown at the high school or educational system. We don't do an amazing job for preparing you to be an independent learner. We tell you exactly what you should learn, when you should learn it, assess you on it, and then we say, yes, you are ready for college and career, off you go. And in reality, what is sometimes the most valuable thing for an employer or for an entrepreneur or whatever career you go down is the ability to self-learn. So to take a problem that you are facing and go find a solution to that. And I don't know if every high school does the best job of preparing students for that. And something I've been guilty of as a teacher in the past, of just kind of following the curriculum, spoon feeding it out, and this is what we assess on, and there's never any creative thought or anything put into it. I'm trying to be better about that now. But as high school students, can you start taking charges? Can you start saying, well, you know what, I really want to learn about this particular topic. Who am I waiting for to tell me that I should go learn that? Go learn it. Go use YouTube, go use Google, go find somebody who can show you how to do it, and go start teaching yourself the things that you really want to know about, and start developing this muscle of, yeah, I can learn anything really with enough time and practice. Like, there's no limit to what I can do. And as Brad said, that's a very attractive personality trait when hiring. And I would hire anybody with that trait over any amount of qualifications that they have, because I'm confident they could go learn anything I need them to do.
Yeah.
But just so kind of saying,
let's double back to the question you asked, which I totally lost the plot on.
It's okay, because you did say, you touched on this a little bit, that I asked, like, is the attitude towards college still the same? And I feel like back when you and I were making the decision about college, the technology available wasn't quite the same. So the job opportunities we had were probably a little bit more limited, or at least less techy. And the pathway to a high paying job was typically, well, you need a bachelor's degree. That gets you, into the pool for a lot of these jobs that pay more. A master's degree will get you better job again, a doctorate, maybe more so. But there was definitely a hierarchy to more education, technically probably equaled higher income. And is that still the case?
Yeah, I think to some degree it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we would be fooling ourselves and giving terrible information to everyone listening if we said college is not important. The fact of the matter is, it is a requirement for many jobs. So to tell you that it's not important is just a complete fabrication. I think before we even get into any of this, though, I just want to say I am certain, regardless of what you hear during this session, of like maybe me saying, oh, I don't think college is as important as I used to. I just want to make it clear, and Rob, I'm sure you would echo this. Like, we are like the most pro education people that you will ever find. Like, so I don't want anyone to think, oh, just because college might not be as important anymore, that it means, oh, I don't need to learn, or that skills aren't important. I think, if anything, that stuff is more important now, because that's what differentiates you, because now everyone can learn. It's not just limited to those lucky people who could go to elite colleges. It's now been democratized to a large degree. So I think, again, just to be very clear, education is critical. But like Rob just said, self-education has become a lot more important. So anyway, actually getting back to the question for the second time is, yeah, I mean, I think how I look at it is, and again, this is with the benefit of hindsight and also having hired many, many people, is there are just bare bones requirements. Like, honestly, what most people are looking for when they say you need a 4-year degree is, have you followed through? Right? Like, do you show up? Do you complete things? Were you able to work hard for 4 years and do this? Because honestly, like, even I went to a great college. I came out with an accounting degree and started working for one of at the time, it was the big 5 accounting firms. And so, I mean, I thought I was set, right? I thought I knew everything. I had done exceedingly well my entire life, 22 years. And I got to my first job and I knew nothing. But that was actually okay, because nobody knew anything. You can't know anything at that first, certainly at least in that job, but you learn on the job. So that, again, is why being able to learn, that's what, to a large degree, that's what a lot of people are getting out of college. Now, do you need a 4-year, like, think about what you're giving up, right? 4 years of your life and potentially tens upon tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So, like, is that an absolute requirement to show somebody that you can learn? No, it isn't. But the bar is higher. Let's say you didn't go to college, to prove that to somebody, because it's just that easy, quick, check the box proxy of, okay, I can follow through. Okay, I know how to learn, right? Those are the things that you're getting by having that 4-year degree. Could you do without it? Well, maybe not in accounting, but in a lot of jobs, I suspect you could. But again, going back to what I was saying, Rob, is I learned everything those first couple of years. I mean, those were the most that I've ever learned in my entire life, with those first couple of years on the job. And again, even though I had some good book knowledge, it did not take the place of, it was almost like an apprenticeship to a large degree. It was, sure, it isn't a trade like an electrician or a plumber, but it felt to a large degree something similar, in that I just had to learn. And I think a lot of jobs are like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not like a great succinct answer, in the sense that, I think attitudes have changed, but I still do think getting that college check the box is important. But, and maybe we can go into this later, there are now other ways potentially to earn 30 to 60, 90 credits even in a lower cost manner. There are CLEP tests and dual enrollment when you're still in high school. There's community college. There are ways that you can do this so that if you're so inclined, it doesn't take up those 4 years of your life and all that money. So I think it's always about what's the trade-off that you're willing to make. If and a lot of high school students aren't necessarily thinking about the money, and I know we'll go into this later, but that it's really going to set you up for life if you can be smart about the money side on the front side of your college decision, as opposed to when you're $200,000 in debt at 22. So yeah, that'll be a cliffhanger for later for sure.
Yeah. And that's going to be a big question now, is like, when we look at the decision from a financial standpoint, like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and how do we optimize this? But I think you did a great job there of some professions still require a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Like as a teacher, for example, like it's technically illegal, like at some points, to teach without a bachelor's degree, and in a lot of places a master's degree. Like you can get a provisional cert or you can get a temporary waiver, but eventually you need to have this level of education to be able to do this job. Most medical professions, same thing. You need to have a degree and then also a license as well. For CPA, is it required to have the degree, or did you just have to pass a bar exam of some sort?
Yeah. So my understanding, and certainly it has changed, actually, it's become more stringent since I graduated from college. Now you need a master's degree to get your CPA license. So yeah, it's definitely another one added to that list.
Yeah. So it's not like, there are some professions out there where there is an exam of some sort that you need to pass, and where you get the knowledge for this exam might be flexible. It might not have to come from a degree, but you would still have to pass this exam in some way. And that degree is typically the most streamlined way of doing it, because that's how they prepare you. But some jobs, we're just seeing like, bachelor's degree might be on the required list of things that they're looking for. But when you look at it, you could be like, you don't really need a degree for this job. They're kind of just checking that box of, has someone put in the hours and the self-management proof that they can actually complete something like this. And that's how we whittle out some maybe resumes in the beginning. The Social Security Administration last year did publish that people who had higher than high school level education did earn about $900,000 more over their lifetime than someone with just a high school diploma. So there is a correlation statistically across the US of people with more education earning more money, which I think most of us would expect probably, but I think there's a lot more exceptions now to this rule, where people are high income earners and maybe they just have a high school degree, whether they're going into the trades, whether they're going into the military, whether they're just starting their own business, whether they're getting certifications in other ways. I think there's a lot more pathways now to that higher income if that's what you want. And certainly to financial independence. Like you don't have to go to college to become financially independent. No. So yeah, we have more options, I would say.
Definitely more options. And yeah, like you were saying, if you believe that the college degree is a checkbox on whatever career that you want, like I said before, it might just be a higher bar in order to get that job without the degree. But I still think it might be possible. And this, I know maybe you could send this to your students or put it in your newsletter. Our ChooseFI episode from a handful of years ago, episode 121R, was entitled "How to Get Any Job." And it was with a guy named Chris Hutchins. And he gave maybe it was only 20 minutes, but it was a masterclass on how you would get a specific job that you want. And I think maybe that 20-minute segment is going to be more important to your students than just about anything they would ever listen to. It's really remarkable in terms of, okay, most people just kind of, I don't know what, spray and pray, let's say, like they apply to 100 jobs. And it's almost like the common application for colleges. Like if I can just check and just spend 40 or $50 to apply to a college, like you're not showing any initiative. You're just one of 50,000 people that are applying. But what if you went that extra step? And I think that's what Chris described in terms of getting a job, in terms of, hey, he actually had somebody show up and create a presentation for, my memory might be slightly off, but it's pretty close, like a presentation for how they would improve their business. And this was what they led with. And it was just this remarkable thing that this person probably spent 50 hours on. But man, if they're spending 50 hours doing that kind of work when they're not even on the payroll, what would they do once you hire them? I think that kind of thing, I would advise anybody listening to say, how can I stand out?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like in any aspect of your life, how can you stand out? How can you do more than just what everybody else is doing, which is the bare minimum? And that's not to be mean to everybody, but we know that's true, right? Like if you, again, going to that list of things that I said before, you show up on time, you solve problems, you communicate clearly, you turn in your work on time, like that is going to put you ahead of everybody. So do those things, differentiate by showing that you care, that when you go to that job application or you go to that interview, you've done more research than anybody who's ever showed up. You're going to get the job. I can almost guarantee you. Right. And that's like, again, this is probably 5 or 6 years ahead of time for the students listening now.
I don't know
But
about
just,
that because we're all
yeah,
applying to colleges soon. And it's
yeah,
kind of a similar thing where like you're writing letters to these colleges.
you're right.
If you're trying to be competitive for certain scholarships or grants or things that the college has, a little bit more leeway in what they give. It's not just a formula. That's where sometimes your letter helps you to stand out. What makes you stand out from all the other applicants? And we fill ourselves up with these extracurriculars that we do service hours, but what else could you potentially show that would say to this college, look, I'm a standout candidate. You want me to be an alumni of your college because, man, I'm going places. I'm going to do things. I could be a donor to the college in the future if I'm like going to be the kind of person who's going to make a lot of money and donate back. But even still, they just want people who are going to be excellent alumni, who are going to complete their 4 years, and are going to do great things in the future.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So yeah, I thought I was jumping ahead, but you're absolutely right. That's I think it's applicable advice for any aspect of life. So yeah, just really try to just think about that, internalize that, and it will serve you well in life. I promise.
Okay, so now thinking about the return on investment of college, we've determined that I do need to go to college of some sort. I need a bachelor's degree to be able to apply for the types of jobs that I want to do. So you've got a career path in mind. You're determined that it does require college education. Yeah. The cost of college is very well publicized. It's been going up extremely high, much higher than inflation, much higher than income has for sure. So we're now seeing back in Brad and I's day, back in our day, that it was more of a, as you like to say, Brad, a slam dunk decision where the cost of entry was much lower and you still got the high income back out. So it was a really good trade of your time and your money, like putting 4 years in with no income or like a part-time job and paying for college. You were going to earn that back plus a lot more as a result of having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, whatever it is. Now, however, we're seeing that the cost of college has still been rising. So if you do 4 years and even still the average student is graduating in 5 because they're changing their mind halfway through a bachelor's program. So 5 years of paying for college to get a degree that allows you to now make a higher income. We're starting at like a negative net worth of maybe, if we say 30,000 a year for college, so now you're talking 120 to $150,000 of debt. Are we going to earn our way back out of that to still make it worth it? What do you think?
Yeah, it is. It is really, really tough. And if you come out with $150,000 of student loan debt, I mean, that is going to be hanging around your neck for potentially decades. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a negative factor in essentially everything you do. And I don't mean to sound exaggerated or hyperbolic, but I think that's true. That's how I think about it. Like, I can't imagine having $1,000+ a month student loan payment and being able to make the decisions that I want. I think what's beautiful about financial independence is we optimize for freedom and choices in our life. And anytime you do something that is going to dramatically reduce the freedom and choices that you have available to you, I think you need to really, really think hard about that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Rob, it's tough because I think we as an American society have almost built college into this 4-year rite of passage / party. And again, it's almost like this checkbox. So all you need to do is just kind of survive your way through it, is how a lot of people sadly think about it. And if you think about it as something that you deserve, right? That oh, this I worked so hard in high school and I deserve this 4-year party. Like, I think you're going to find yourself. I think you're going to wake up at 25, 30 and just kick yourself. Like, what did I do? There were so many options that I could have taken. Just something really simple is, I mean, many private schools, even just, Rob, there are 3,000 colleges, I think, somewhere plus or minus in America. And I mean, there are well over 1,000 of them. I mean, I'm just making these numbers up off the top of my head, but you have 1,000 private colleges charging $50,000 to $60,000 a year that nobody's ever heard of these colleges. And that sounds mean, and I understand that, but just a simple decision would be go to the public school in your state. Almost invariably, there are, I know in Virginia, there are probably easily 20 public schools at a range of different academic rigor and difficulty of getting in. But just making that decision is going to half the cost. And then you start talking, okay, what are the things that I could do? Could I get scholarships? We just had a gentleman on episode 460 of ChooseFI talking about merit aid and different things you can do. And I hate to focus on SAT and ACT because they really, at the end of the day, don't matter all that much. But it's like playing the game. Okay, I understand the game is, if I do well on these, and especially now, because Rob, this wasn't true when I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
It was getting a really great SAT score will help you get into elite colleges, but there were none of these merit aid grids, which they now have, which Brian Eufinger talked about on episode 460, which is, okay, if you get a 3.8 GPA and a 1,300 on your SATs, you're going to get $15,000 a year in scholarship. But if you got a 1,400, it's going to be 18,000. Or, I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but there are published grids now to show you. So again, I don't want to say the SAT score is like your IQ test, or it matters, or anything. It doesn't. But it's a test that you can study for. I wish that it wasn't. I wish that this didn't exist, frankly. But putting that aside, because what I wish doesn't matter. What your parents wish doesn't matter. What you wish, it's irrelevant. It's the facts on the ground. The facts are, if you do a little bit better on this test, you could potentially get tens of thousands of dollars of merit aid times, over 4 years, you're talking a boatload of money. All right. So that might suggest, instead of, I don't know, working part-time for $12 an hour, what if I studied? Right? What if I just studied for the SAT or the ACT? And if I know I just need to go from this score to that score, that might be very well doable. These are tests that you can study for. So again, I don't want to waste too much time on this, but it's the thought process. What are the ways that I could potentially save? Could I save by going to a community college for 2 years and getting an associate's degree? Which, yeah, I mean, is that going to potentially impress all your friends and your parents' friends? No, it's not. But who cares? Because if the decision is, I don't want to come out with $200,000 of debt and have this thing hanging around my neck for 20 or 30 years, am I willing to make a slightly harder decision? There's a famous quote, which is, hard choices, easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. Okay? And I love that, because if you make the easy decision, which is just, hey, I'm going to go to some 4-year college. I don't care what it costs. Doesn't matter. I'm following the path. This is what everybody's told me is success. You might come out with $200,000 of debt, and you're going to have a really hard life. If you make that slightly hard choice of, all right, maybe I'm going to do dual enrollment, or I'm going to take some CLEP tests, even though do I really want to be doing that? I mean, Rob, did you want to take random tests your senior year of high school? No, of course not. Nobody wants to. But if you could get maybe 10, 20, 30 college credits just by taking a couple of tests, is that a hard choice that's going to lead to an easier life? You bet it is. So think outside the box. Think of these ways, because I mean, Rob, you know specifically, like, I mean, we both know having student loan debt, it's going to always be there. So yeah, that was a lot, but any thoughts on that?
It's and I hope you all are hearing the way Brad is thinking about this. And this is what I think, as financial literacy or financial education students, that we as teachers are trying to communicate to you, is that we want to approach the things we do and the things we buy in particular with some sort of intentionality. We want to make decisions that are based on a little bit of thought and ideally some education that's kind of made this an informed decision. But what typically happens, at least has happened in previous generations, is people get to the end of high school, they send out their applications to colleges, they get accepted to a college, they say, great, sign on the dotted line, student loans will take care of the balance, whatever it is. And after they graduate, and 6 months later, that first student loan bill comes in and people get shocked by what they actually owe now, because essentially student loans will write almost a blank check for you. Whatever you want to do, whatever major, whatever college you want to go to, your family's expected to contribute some part of it. And if they can't do it, you take student loans out to do that. And you can essentially go and get student loans to cover most of it. Like, there's exceptions to this rule, of course, but people are just signing up for these loans and they don't know what they're signing up for. They don't know what the interest rate means. They don't understand that that's going to have to be paid back and how big that payment's going to be. Like, you heard Brad quoting $1,000. Like, that's not a ridiculous student loan payment. That's a very average one, I would say. And the average student loan takes 21 years to pay back, even though like the term is technically 10. A lot of people will take 21 to pay it back. So if we can just think about this a little bit more intentionally, like, how do I get what I want cheaper, faster, in an alternative means, so that I can keep the costs low, reduce the amount of debt I have to take on, and then get to reap the rewards in the same way. So Brad mentioned dual enrollment. Can you pick up some college credits while you're still in high school? You will get them at a quarter, a third, an eighth, like a ridiculously low price compared to what you'll pay for them in the actual college that you're affiliated with. Can you do community college? So again, picking up credits at a cheaper rate than you will get them in a four-year college. They count the same. After you go from a 2-year to a 4-year and then you graduate, your degree just says you graduated from this university with a bachelor's degree. There's no asterisks on it to say, oh, but 2 years that was in community college. You still just have a 4-year degree from this college, but you've paid half price for 2 years or a quarter price for 2 years. The work study that is available in a lot of colleges is huge. So college will pay you to do jobs on campus whilst you're allowed to study, again, reducing the amount you have to borrow. Brad mentioned different scholarships that you could apply for, different tests you could do. Those are all strategies for reducing the amount of money you're going to have to pay for this degree. And your choice of college is a big one too. As Brad said, private colleges typically cost more than public ones, unless you are qualifying for a lot of scholarship aid or merit aid, or you've done the research to find the college is going to be cheaper for you. Typically, state schools will be cheaper, and staying in your state will be cheaper than going out of state most times. So can you just rewrite the equation a little bit so you're being intentional? You're like, okay, if I want to become a teacher and my starting salary is going to be $46,000 a year, it doesn't make sense for me to borrow $40,000 a year to get that degree. The math doesn't make sense. And I think the general rule of thumb is borrow no more than 1 year's salary if possible. So like, if I'm going to get a degree in education, your general rule will be don't borrow more than 40 grand or 46 grand to get that degree. And that kind of lets your income balance out what your debt payment's going to be. Did I miss anything, Brad?
No, that's a great rule of thumb also. And yeah, you just never know. Again, like you said, it's the thought process. And I'm glad that you really highlighted that, because the specifics of what we're both saying, you could take or leave any of them, right? Like, and you could pick or choose, whatever. It's the thought process. And you never know. I know you're up in Maryland, Rob, but we have people listening from across the country. In Virginia, there's a guaranteed admissions program for community college, which is remarkable. We have some of the best public colleges in America with University of Virginia, William and Mary, among others. And if you go to community college and you basically dot some I's and cross some T's, I think you need like a 3.5 GPA, which is not impossible to get by any means, and take precise courses, you are guaranteed admissions to UVA or William and Mary. And like you said, when you come out with that degree, nobody looks at it and says, oh, but he or she went to community college. No one cares. That's not how it works. They just look at, where did you get the degree from? If you got it from UVA or William and Mary, that's pretty darn good. And to do that for half price, all the better. So again, can you think differently? Can you think outside the box? Can you do something that might be a little bit countercultural? Or, hey, maybe your friend isn't doing this. Or maybe, again, you're not impressing anybody, but your life is going to be dramatically better for it. And I think that's, can you be willing to withstand a little bit of discomfort? I think that, again, Rob, going back to financial independence, that's one of the hallmarks, right? It's just doing something a little bit differently. It's not living a negative life or a life of deprivation at all. It's just thinking a little bit differently.
That's it. And another one I would throw out is, like, say, the teaching example again. There's such a shortage of teachers right now that literally, if you have a degree from anywhere, you will probably get hired. Like, if cereal boxes offered education degrees, that would be enough for us to hire a teacher at the moment, because there's such a shortage. So like, are online colleges an option where you get much cheaper credits because there's none of this facilities cost that has to go with it? It's very flexible when you can do it, where you can do it, that sort of thing. Can you go to one of the cheaper colleges, or does it require something more prestigious? I would say there's only a handful of jobs in the country that the name on the degree makes a big difference. I mean, the college name, of course, not personal name, but like,
right. Like if you want to work for McKinsey or Bain and Company or Goldman Sachs or something, yeah,
it might be a surgeon in the top college or in the top hospitals in the world, or something like that. Then yeah, like your program is probably going to make a big difference. Lawyers, maybe same thing, but I think for the most, it's like, did you get the degree? Did you get the knowledge you needed from maybe an approved program? So like, that's the only thing I would check to see is like, if I'm going to become a teacher and I'm getting an education degree, is it approved by whatever board states that a degree has met the requirements to become a teacher? Like, it just making sure you're not getting scammed, basically, is what I'm talking about. So yeah, just thinking about it that way, like, how do I get what I want in the most effective way possible? And this applies to education, to housing, to your car, to any purchase basically that you want to make. How do I do it a little bit smarter so that I don't just pay the normal full sticker price that everyone else has been doing? Is there a better way? If there's not, I mean, of course, that's what's left. But if there is, now you start accelerating that path to financial independence, because you've cut a ton of debt out. You've gotten something that's going to increase that income, that shovel for building up your wealth or getting rid of that debt that you have. And that's when we get these really exciting stories about people who are becoming financially independent at a very young age, who are able to invest a lot of money from a young age. There's a ton you can do when you have this extra money. Okay, so Brad, let's go back to where we started, which was that idea of upskilling yourself. And if you were to think about what skills an employer might find super valuable that maybe you wouldn't get from a college degree, like, what would you add to your talent stack, we'll call it?
Yeah, talent stack is a great way of putting it. I think that's the way that everybody listening should think about how they tell their story. And that's actually, Rob, what reminded me a couple of minutes ago when you were talking, is how can you tell the story of who you are? And I think for so many people that get caught up in, oh, I didn't do the normal path, so I'm not qualified. Or maybe a little further into life, I took a sabbatical, I took some time off. And what is the next job that I apply for? What are they going to think about that? Right? And I would reframe it, because again, this is all reframing. Now you have a really interesting story to tell that is going to set you apart from everybody else. And I think that if you can come up with that goes back to that how to get any job, right? So if you have some interesting story, something that is going to make you stand out from the crowd, because otherwise you're just a part of the crowd, right? And then how is that job going to, how's that the person, the hiring manager, going to decide between the 600 applications they got? I mean, it's just pick and choose at that point. But what if you did something to stand out? So that's why, Robert, you very specifically used the phrase talent stack. And we've talked about that at ChooseFI for years. It's all right, what are the things that when I put these random skills together, and you do not, this is critical, you do not have to be world class at any of them. So few people are world class at anything. So I mean, to strive for that, it's very difficult. I'm not going to say don't do it. I don't want to squash anybody's dreams here, obviously. But if you're even in the top 10 or 20% of people in a variety of things, that when you put that talent stack together, you might be the only person in the world. Like, Rob, for instance, and I will get back to your question about what skills should the students listening specifically go for. But I mean, my own life is, I was a CPA doing corporate state tax returns, but on the side, I was building soccer websites and learning how to code on a low level, and then using something called travel hacking, which is basically traveling the world using rewards points. And it's like, okay, I'm maybe the only person on earth with this set of skills. And I was able to then turn that into a business that propelled me to all the success I've had over the last 10 years, just by thinking a little bit differently and having that random set of skills. When, I mean, honestly, my wife thought I was crazy building, at that point, this doesn't exist anymore, so don't look it up, but soccertools.com. And I was literally coding in HTML the English Premier League tables from like 1992, 1993, like all the way back. And it didn't make sense at the time, but I was building this stack of skills. And when opportunity arose that I could take advantage of something, again, I was maybe the only person on earth with those set of skills. So that's, again, it's more a thought process of, all right, follow your passion. For me, it's don't go all in on something. Like I was never, there's a phrase, burn the boats, which would have meant, okay, I'm going to quit my CPA job and just going all in on soccertools.com, which would have been a terrible decision. But so that's burn the boats. You're not going back. You can't go back, right? But for me, it was, all right, I'm going to test. I'm going to keep building these skills. I'm going to keep learning things. And you never know when the opportunity arises that I could take advantage of this. So yeah, I mean, I think for people now, it's easy to fall into the trap of everybody should learn to get a tech job or to code or something like that. I think that's bad advice, personally. Right. And by your nodding, you do as well, Rob. And I think that could be a great opportunity for many people. So I don't want anyone to get the misimpression that I think it's a bad decision. I just don't think it is the right path for everybody. And it's the easy path, right? Because, okay, you can take a coding boot camp, or there are tons of jobs in that world, but you might just hate it, right? Like that might just not be for you. I don't want you to get pigeonholed there. So, I mean, going back to the very beginning, Rob, I think the fundamental skills are the most important, which is, can you communicate clearly? Can you write emails? Can you write in full sentences? Can you get your point across clearly? Can you speak publicly? I mean, it's hilarious that in November of 2023, I'm a public speaker, because if you had talked to me 20 years ago, I would have said there's a 0% chance.
Yeah.
Right? Like this was not in my skill stack, but it has become something that I'm much more comfortable with now. And I think it's really important. If you ask Warren Buffett, who's maybe the best investor of all time, he has said one of the best things he ever did was, I think it was, go to Toastmasters. It's a way that you can practice your public speaking. And now, is that for everybody? No, not necessarily. But I guarantee you, if you had the guts to try that, you're going to get something out of it, and it's going to benefit you. So Yeah, I mean, Rob, I'd love to hear your thoughts on specific skills, because my mind keeps going again more to the general stuff, because
Well,
I
I think that
think
was
you,
the point. I was like, I
yeah,
was kind of setting you up there to see how this fell, because like I think a lot of people would jump in with this skill, this skill, this skill,
yeah,
and I think you're right. It's not a broad base. Everyone should learn how to do something. Public speaking is great. Is it essential? No, you could certainly find lots of careers. And you talked about coding. Like, I don't know if every coder is an amazing public speaker, but my goodness, they can be amazing at that job. And coding doesn't have to be for everyone. Um, Graphic design doesn't have to be for everyone. Writing eloquently doesn't even have to. Even if you can just figure out how to use Grammarly well, like you can
yeah,
certainly say, okay, I can deal with the writing part, even if my spelling and grammar is atrocious. Like I've learned how to use a tool to help me out. The AI tools that are now coming out, can you navigate using those effectively and let that become your major skill set? Those of you who are very good at gaming, you have a skill set in itself. Like there's so many things out there. And what we want to encourage you to do is to start exploring things that you're interested in and start getting good at them. And then once you've gotten to a decent level, be like, okay, what else do I want to add into my skill set? Like I'm I haven't asked you this before, but I'm pretty confident if I asked you right now, Brad, are you learning to do anything new right now?
I feel like I'm always learning.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like you're developing or practicing or working on or learning new right now that you maybe hadn't before?
Yeah, one thing, it's funny because we talk about written communication, and I am really focusing on that. I mean, I send out a newsletter every Tuesday, and it is something that is really hard. I have to really work at it, and I feel like I'm constantly trying to get better. I just read a book called Smart Brevity that really changed my thinking. I think I was a little too wordy in these emails for a long time, and it's helped me hone in on that. So
Mhm.
I'm doing that, but also, frankly, Rob, is even the tech side of my newsletter. I have learned more in the last month about newsletters than I could have ever imagined. And it's funny how, like, this is but one example, of course, so
Mhm.
I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it. But yeah, I mean, the short answer to your question is I am literally learning all the time. It feels like it almost feels overwhelming sometimes, in the sense that there's so much to learn. There's so many things I want to do, and it's limited by my time. It's limited by my ability to learn. But I mean, I 44 years old, and I haven't arrived. I don't think you ever arrive. Like I think you've lost it if you have that mindset of, oh, I'm going to be an expert and then I'm never going to learn anything again. Like, the world doesn't work that way.
Or
The
that
world
I'm
is
done learning at some point in my life. Like, oh, I finished high school, I'm done learning. I finished
right,
college, I'm
right.
done learning. The journey never stops. And I think that's
No.
part of being a human, is this idea of like personal growth, development. And it's one of the things that makes us happy, I feel like, is having this feeling of upskilling ourselves and becoming better at things. But I knew if I asked you that you would be working on something, because I remember like
Yeah.
years ago, were you learning a language with your family at some point?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Um,
actually, well, I actually just picked that back up. So I studied Japanese
hmm.
in college, and I had put it down for a long time. I'm planning on going back to Japan next year. So I've just picked it up just very recently. You couldn't have timed that better if you tried. I just signed up for the Pimsleur language learning. So
Mhm.
yeah, I probably honestly have 5 things that I'm learning at the given moment. But
They don't have
yeah,
to
it's
be for
wild.
a business. Like they can just be for
No.
personal growth reasons. So like I know the newsletter, everyone might be like, well, Brad does a newsletter, it's part of his business. That makes sense. But no, it can just be for something personal. Like this summer, I learned to rebuild my deck, and I spent a lot of time on YouTube figuring out like, well, how do I do this? How do I measure it right? How do I cut it right? How do I assemble it right and not have it collapse at some point in the future? Language is same thing. And then there's stuff for business or for being a teacher. Like we can learn in so many different areas of our lives. And I hope that's what you're taking away from this. Those of you that are viewing, there's so many different ways to learn, and you might say like, well, I'm a little strapped for time, and we can push back on that. Like you probably are learning lots of different things already, but say like, let's look at your part-time job that you might be doing. How many of you are working in some place like a fast food chain where you turn up, you do the job, you leave again, and you never took the time to explore like, well, how does this business work? How do the different parts that go on behind me work? Or can I find a part-time job that maybe is doing something that I'm actually really interested in? So can I go get an apprenticeship doing something that I really want to do in the future, or can I learn a skill from it? So like, could I start helping the graphic designers out with maybe learning about advertising, or can I work up front this time instead of in the back so I can start communicating with people and working on my public speaking? There's so many ways you can learn, and I hope you all start taking advantage of that. Okay, Brad, we got a couple of questions from students.
Okay, nice.
Susie wants to know, like, what do I do if I don't know what to do? Like, I don't know what I want to do for a career. I'm still like really lost. And this is kind of how I felt in my senior year. Like, I just don't know what I want to do with my life. What would you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, Susie, you're in good company, because I think most of us don't know what we want to do in high school. And I mean, most people are figuring it out, even as adults. So please don't think you're behind, or that you should have your life all figured out at whatever your age is. You shouldn't. You can't. I sometimes, again, I've been fairly successful in life, I guess, by any like objective measure, but like I still feel like I'm figuring it out. And what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, I mean, I'm kind of saying that jokingly, but it's okay. I think that's the biggest lesson that or the biggest thing I'd want to get across to you is it is okay. You cannot possibly know what you want to do at 17 years old. You can't. And a lot of people maybe say, oh, I'm going to be pre-med, or I'm going to be what, like most of those people change their minds. It's just, that's the way it is. And that's okay. So, and this again goes back to what I made sure to say is like, I am one of the most pro education people that you will ever find, ever. And I think this is the perfect case in point of, you need to just explore. But how can you do that in a smart way? That might mean, again, going to community college and just take 5 random courses, right? Like just for fun, take 5 things that you might never have taken before. All right. Yeah. That's going to take a couple of months of your life, but that might be worth it. I mean, I suspect that is worth it. Certainly better than just randomly picking something because society or your teachers or your parents say you have to declare a major at your 4-year university in your freshman year. Like, you're still figuring it out, and that's great. You should be excited about that, not worried because everybody's telling you have to be. So, Rob, any thoughts additionally?
I think that comes back to the question I asked you at the beginning. What's different from when you and I made our college decision to now? I think in the job market, we see people change jobs much more often than they did 10, 20 years ago. Like the idea of switching career and, taking one track and going on a totally different direction is much more common now than it used to be. And, Brad started off as an accountant. He did not finish as an accountant. Like, he's doing something totally different now as a podcaster and someone who works in the media space than what he was doing before. I still work as a teacher, but it's not the same thing I trained for when I first went to college. Like, I trained as a phys ed teacher, and now I'm a personal finance educator, and then creating stuff online like this. So you're allowed to change your mind. But the thing that allows us to do that is things like financial independence, where you are being so intentional about keeping costs low that you keep doors open for yourself. So if you nail yourself into a degree field where you've paid $150,000 for this degree, you borrowed it, and now you got to pay it back. And the only way to do that is to work this job that you're not that excited about anymore. And you can't leave it because you're paycheck to paycheck and there's no room to go search for a better job. That's hard. And that doesn't give you that flexibility. It makes it feel like, well, I've got to pick something now that I can do for the rest of my life and be happy doing it, which none of us really know that. So yeah, that intentionality, thinking about things differently, allows you the freedom to go explore. And I like Brad's idea of just try some stuff out. Go say like, okay, I will do a gap year, but during that gap year, I'm going to do 5 different classes at the community college, and I'll work and I'll make sure that, I can cover that. And then at that point, maybe I'll go try it. Or I know I want to go to college, so I'll spend my first year doing the kind of the variety of liberal arts credits or whatever it is you have to do. Like, I'm going to pick up the general stuff and maybe go talk to other students who are doing different careers. I'm going to spend time exploring different careers. And then next year I can choose more specific stuff. That could be an option as well. I wouldn't say go to college just for the sake of it, though. If you're not sure about what you want to do, either do the community college stuff with the cheap credits or take that gap year, but make it a very intentional gap year. just, don't waste money, essentially trying to say like, I'm just going to college for the sake of it.
Agree.
Okay. So that was a good one. This question, it's not quite, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I think what John is trying to say is like, if I don't have the qualification that a job is asking for, can I still apply to it?
Yeah, I hear you, John, because I think I would have been nervous that no, you can't. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, they're going to just throw it out. But I think, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that some employers won't do that, because I suspect some employers would. But this goes back to, and I'm not saying this is the perfect foolproof plan, but this goes back to that how to get any job, or the standing out, having that story, being a little different, solving problems. If you're that person, almost nobody cares if you have every last qualification, if you show that you're someone who can learn and you're willing to go the extra mile, and you're going to do all those things. So I'm torn on this answer, because I suspect there are some to many jobs that again, it's that check the box, which is so annoying, which is why there are these ways to get 30 to 60 credits through those CLEP tests pretty easily, or do these things. Like, if you understand the rules of the game, then you have to play it like a game. And I don't mean that cynically. I just, as opposed to saying, okay, well, my only option is 4 years at $60,000 and I'm going to come out with $250,000 of debt. Like, that's not a great option. But if you say, all right, maybe I can do this in 2.5 years, because again, if you don't think of college as a 4-year party that you're entitled to, but you think of it as, all right, this is going to help me for the rest of my life.
I just need to get 36 credits as fast as possible. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So that totally different ballgame.
And I don't want to like keep saying like we're throwing back to episodes of your show for no reason whatsoever.
No.
If you are not familiar with the ChooseFI podcast, this is a place to go learn from experts in so many different areas of life, but with a financial independence focus. So like, it's essentially what we're doing here in school, but at a higher level, again, with a huge variety of content. One other episode that I think you should look back on is a recent one you did as well with Financial Mechanic. And if you know the episode number off the top of your head, I'll be really impressed. But she talked about ways to raise your income. And one of the things that she said, I'm pretty sure it was her that said this, was that men in general will apply to a job even if they don't meet all of the criteria on the job description, and women will not. And that's a very, black and white way of looking at it. But the job description is the employer's ideal candidate. Like, if I could have everything in one person, this is what it would look like. And you have to look at that as well. That person probably doesn't exist. First of all, if they do, they're probably working another job and not looking for one right now. And I can be that person at some point. You just got to give me a shot. And all you have to do is kind of get through the door of, let me tell you about myself and let me explain, like, I'm a go-getter, I'm a learner, I'm someone who will, figure things out, and I can do this job if given the chance. And that could be something you look at it as well in that way. Because, if you wait for the perfect job description to come up, you might not see it. And do you need the qualification? I would say you have to be creative sometimes. And you talked about this as well, Brad. Like, if we think about applying for a job the traditional way, you create a resume, you submit it via a job website, and you wait and you hope that something comes back. And what we don't realize in a lot of cases is that a lot of these job websites have AI built in to screen through resumes, and they push forward the ones that tick the AI boxes. So like, look for this word, look for this word, this word, this word, this qualification. And so if you know that you don't have the qualification to get through that barrier, then maybe you have to skip it in some way. So like, is there another way that you can reach out to the person in HR or the hiring manager or the CEO? Like, how can you get creative with this? I think, was there someone else in your podcast who said they sent like a sheet cake in with their resume on it to the office lounge, and that was their way past the gatekeepers of HR?
Yeah, I feel like someone did that. And yeah, the most recent episode was episode 454 with Financial Mechanic on salary negotiation. That's another, like you said, really good one. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even have to be, it's funny how this all kind of came together here. I had a story. It doesn't even have to be about a job. It could just be, how do I reach out and connect with somebody? My daughter, so at the time she was 14, she's a massive roller coaster fan. She's a roller coaster enthusiast. And we wound up reaching out to the general manager. So basically the CEO of our local major amusement park. This is someone who is one of the most important business leaders in the state of Virginia. And it was, okay, how do you reach out to someone important? How do you get them to open your email? How do you get them to read it? How do you get them to respond? That's something that, again, is telling that story. So I helped my daughter craft this story of, she's a 14-year-old stockholder and roller coaster enthusiast. And that was the email subject that we wrote to this extremely important business leader. And this woman read the email. She responded to the email and she wanted to meet my daughter. And it was just such a cool story. And I think everybody listening can take something from that, in that, all right, how can you tell that story? How can you be a little bit different? This person is extremely important and busy and took time out of her life, away from her family, to meet my daughter because we told an interesting story. And she showed she was interested, right? So that, getting back to the job aspect, is don't just apply to 100 jobs. Actually find the job you want and go get it. Be different. Tell the story. Learn about the company. Solve problems. Do these things that actually matter. You're going to get hired. I can almost guarantee it.
And I feel like this episode, or whatever you want to call it, has turned into a little bit like about how to get that job we want, which is awesome. It's a really great conversation. So there's lots of takeaways in here. If you are doing the student reflection sheet that went with this video, make sure you've been filling that out along the way. If you need to find it in the description of this video. But there is one final question, Brad, on the sheet that I ask all of my guests who come on, and that is, what is your number one piece of advice for teens or young adults when it comes to building wealth?
For building wealth. Ooh, that's a good one.
Because you have heard so many of these, I'm sure, through your time at ChooseFI, like all these nuggets of tips, ideas, things that we should do, action items we should take. What would be your number one you would give to a teen?
Okay. This is what I tell my daughter. So this is my number one. It's save 50% of your income. And that sounds crazy to the adults listening to this, if they've already built a life and they've spent all their money, essentially. But when you come out of college and you've just been living in a dorm with your friends, and now all of a sudden you're out, you don't have this lifestyle to keep up. So you don't have to impress anybody. Again, it goes back to that. Like, you don't have to impress anybody. You have to make decisions that are going to make your life better for the next 7 decades, the next 70 years of your life. If you basically start off saying, all right, I am saving for my life, for my freedom fund, not for some far off retirement when you're 70 years old that you can't think about. But if you're saving money from the very beginning, your life is going to be dramatically easier. Dramatic. I mean, your life will be so much better if, before you've made those decisions to prove to everybody how rich you are, that you have a BMW and your own fancy apartment or whatever, like, live with a bunch of your friends. Split an apartment 4 ways. You just were living in dorms. Like, you don't have to impress anybody. If you save 50% of your income, you will have a successful financial life. It's a mathematical certainty, absolute mathematical certainty. And then spend every other dollar and enjoy your life. Just because life is about enjoying. But man, save that money, please.
Yeah. And if you can't do 50, because like we know that is, in some cases, like with some incomes, that's a very privileged thing to say, but you save what you can. And this is advice that's been echoed through other guests of pay yourself first, that like set aside that amount that is for future you, for building wealth, for doing the really fun things you want to do later in life, and start bringing that financial independence day closer and closer with whatever you can do. Like if you can do 50, amazing. Like Brad said, you're starting off with a blank slate pretty much, especially if you don't have that huge student debt to pay off. And you can afford now to put more of that into saving and investing for your future. All right, Brad, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find out more about you and what you do if they want to check you out?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, man. This is a lot of fun. And yeah, we've mentioned the podcast a bunch of times. If you want to check out, I don't need you to follow ChooseFI necessarily, other than that you're going to get a lot out of it. So start with those episodes that we mentioned, 121R, go to episode 460, go to the salary negotiation 454. Just listen to those couple. And if you like it, keep on listening. Episode 100 is a great place to start. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, that really is the place to find us.
All right, Brad, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions that you didn't get answered during this, please leave them in the comment section of the video, and myself or Brad will try and get in there and answer them for you. Have a great one, everyone.